Hello, my name is Matt, and I'll be showing you how to create your own virtual environment and create a virtual simulation for drones using AirSim, Unreal Engine, PX4, and QGroundControl. So I have all of these applications already installed, but I'll be walking you through how to install these individually. Now, we'll be using the latest versions of AirSim found on their GitHub right here. Also include links. I also have a little step-by-step tutorial over here. But we'll be using these latest versions of AirSim, PX4, and QGroundControl. I'll also show you how to install Unreal Engine. And I also have a GitHub repository of some very tedious things that you would have to set up. So I have settings.json and I have my .u project over here. We'll go over those later. But these are just basic settings that you can just use, copy and paste. And I'll explain each and individual little thing a little later. But first, let's install AirSim. So we need the latest version of AirSim installed on our computer. So let's say you have a very old version of AirSim, right? So what you should probably do is delete it, and doing it through here actually doesn't fully delete it. What you would have to do is navigate to that folder, and then you're going to type in a little command like this, and this actually fully flushes everything from this file or from this folder, and you can actually freshly install AirSim. So we'll be using git bash to install this. So what we're going to do is navigate to any folder that you want, wherever you want AirSim to be located on, and we're gonna let me find where all the GitHub pages are. So we're going to use AirSim, we're going to go here, and we're going to copy this over here. Now if you don't have git bash, you can just install it from over here and just download for Windows. So the way you would do this is you do git bash, or not git bash, git clone, and then you do this and press enter. And when you press enter, it'll download absolutely everything, all the repositories, everything. Now, what we're going to do is, before we go anywhere else, we're going to make sure we have the latest version of Microsoft Visual Studio 2022, and 2022 specifically, because if you have 2019 or 2017 or any other version, it will actually not work, because we will be needing our developer command prompt over here to build AirSim, to run Windows build commands. So the best way to do this would be just to move it through like this, go to your installed apps, uninstall, and then going to the Visual Studio official page, like so. Just look for it and then follow these steps. But this is a relatively straightforward process, and I won't go over it today. But after you install Visual Studio 2022, let me exit out of here. Or let's say you have Visual Studio 2022 already, but you want to install certain packages, right? So if you go here and go to your installer, so if you automatically, or not automatically, if you just download it freshly, this should automatically come up before you finish your download. So there are a couple things that we're going to need to install before we continue. So desktop development with C++, this option over here, you're going to need to check that, and then you're going to also want to install other components. So we're going to go to game development. Since we're using Unreal Engine 4.27, we'll be installing this Windows 11 SDK. Now if you're on Windows 10, you'll install this Windows 10 one. And then you're also going to want to do this .NET Framework 4.81 SDK. You're going to need that. And then you can save all your changes from over here, and then your installs should pretty much finish. Now let me launch Visual Studio, and let's continue. So we need the developer command prompt, so we can continue without code over here. That's fine. So we can navigate to tools to get to our developer command prompt over here. So we're actually going to use this to install AirSim. So let's navigate to where we installed AirSim earlier. So for me, that would be in my documents. Documents/AirSim. So what we're going to do here is, actually, I'm very used to Linux commands, so I was about to type in ls right there, but this is probably a better visual way of showing you guys what's actually in AirSim when you install it. So you're going to see all of these little commands over here, Windows batch files and whatnot. So what we're going to do is run this build command over here. So we need this to actually build all the dependencies for AirSim. So you would run this, and this would take quite a bit of time since it's a relatively big thing to download. But after you install it, we'll be starting with our Unreal project. So that's it for AirSim. So let's go to how we're going to install Unreal Engine. So I'm using Epic Games Launcher, and you can just look online to see how to install this. So right here, you can I just looked up Epic Games Launcher. You can download from here. Get rid of that. And this is like the normal launcher that people play games with, like Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto, things like that. So you can just go over here to this Unreal Engine tab over here, and then we go to Library, and then we're going to want to install 4.272, this exact version right here. So if you already have a version of Unreal Engine installed, you can just go over here on that little plus I just clicked on, and then click on the number up here. And then you'll see all the different versions that you can install. So after you install that, we're going to run that. So over here, I'm going to go quick overview on what the Epic Games Launcher offers. So you can see your project over here. And now the main reason we're using, or I wanted to use Unreal Engine versus Gazebo or Unity, is this marketplace. Now we'll be doing this entire tutorial with a blank project, but you can actually install or download different environments. So let's go to Browse Environments. Now you can see some of these actually need money, or not need money, cost money. Some of these are very, very expensive, but there are actually free ones over here. So you can download any of these, and all you have to do is make sure that your version of Unreal Engine will work. So you can see supported engine versions. So this one supports 4.27. But we'll continue on with the blank project, and I'll specify what's the difference between a blank project and a one that you downloaded already. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit launch. Now since we already have AirSim installed, now we have to get a blank project, and this is our little Unreal project browser. So as you see, if you downloaded one from the internet or from that marketplace, you would see it right here actually. But we're starting a new one. So blank, all this is fine, and so you should also take note of where this is in your folder. So for me, I keep everything in my documents folder just for ease of use. So here you can see Unreal projects. So I'm just going to call this my project. That's completely fine. So let me close this. Actually. So if you're running this for the very, very first time, this will also take some time to start up. As you can see, this is our little environment that it created for us. Now, what we need to do to actually use Visual Studio 2022 to do some editing is to create a C++ class. Now this could be completely blank, so we're going to use none. See my class, this doesn't matter, and we're adding code to project. So after this is done, this will actually automatically open Visual Studio 2022 and create a .sln file for you to be using. And whenever you do end up running this project, you don't want to open it through Unreal Engine, like how we saw earlier in the Unreal browser. We would actually want to run this .sln. So I'll show you that in a little bit after this is done coding how to do that. But before we do that, we have to do some things first. So you just heard that little sound. That means it finished. We love Microsoft Visual Studio. So here's my empty class. You don't have to worry about this because this is something that we're not going to be really using at all. Now before we start, I'm going to actually close that, and we're just going to have this open for right now. So before we actually start, put that out here too, we'll actually want to go back to where we installed AirSim, and we're going to find something called the Unreal folder over here, and it's listed alphabetical order, so just scroll all the way down. Unreal, and there's something called plugins, right? So we actually want to copy this. We're going to go back to where we have our Unreal project. In this case, it's called My Project. So over here, let's remember where it is, My Project, and what we're going to do is we're just going to paste this. I'm going to Control V. And now it's using our plugins. Now we have our plugins folder in here. Now we have to tell our .u project, or our Unreal project, to use these, to use the AirSim plugins. So how we're going to do that is, my Microsoft Visual Studio 2022 kind of looks weird, a little different. But let's go to our Solutions Explorer, and then let's expand all of these. So my project, so the .u project is what we want to be editing here. So source, or not source, here. And as you can see, some things are already here for us to use. So I have what you're supposed to put in here, so you can use the AirSim dependencies. So pretty much the only thing that's really different between what's here and over here, what you're supposed to have, is everything from over here could pretty much be not deleted, but you can copy it from here. So let's do that, because we want to keep the same name for our project. We want to keep that consistent. So let's do that. Control B. Oh no, wrong one. Haha. Control C. Control V. And make sure you're saving everything as you do this. So after we do that, there's also so now it knows to use AirSim. So additional dependencies, see AirSim. This wasn't changed at all. And then plugins, AirSim. So there's one more thing that we do have to change, and it will be located, as you see, it says My Project. So this will be the name of your project, whatever you name it. So config, and then we're going to go to default game.ini. Let's open that. So let's say you downloaded a project already from, or an environment from online, and most of this will be set up for you except for that .u project, which you would have to do the same thing. But your default game.ini might look a little different. But the only things that you would really need is, first, let's include what we need for right now. So you pretty much just need to add these startup actions over here to your already existing environment to use AirSim. So let's Control S. Now let's X out of this. Go back to our AirSim. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here. We're going to do show more options over here, and we're going to generate Visual Studio project files. So this will take a little bit of time. Now that's done. Let's open this back up. This will take a little bit of time. And this is all the stuff that we edited, still here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make sure we have this local Windows debugger selected. What we're going to do is we're going to press play. So this is just like running any other script that you run, any script that you would have run on Microsoft Visual Studio 2022, and this will actually automatically open your Unreal Engine. So from now on, open your Unreal project this way, not through the browser. Let's see if it goes through. It says ready. So, aha. So if you're doing this for the very first time, like I said earlier, this will take some time to initially start up, but you're also going to have to let communications through the firewall. So let's take a look around. So this is our little environment. So if you have an environment already downloaded, you would actually have to add your player start over here. But you can just add that with over here. Not too bad. So we actually need to make sure that this is on the ground where it starts, because this is where our drone will be starting. Oh, let's Control Z that. Up more. Let's just have it there. Bad size. Does that really matter? Navigating through this is pretty... oh, that's what happened. So let's just put it there. And there's a couple things we need to do before. So let's go to World Settings. So this should be opened over here on the right. So what we need to do is put this game mode override, make sure that it says AirSim. And if you want, if you don't have the greatest computer ever, we can go to editor preferences, type CPU in that search box over here, and when you're tabbed out, you can have it use less CPU. But I have a relatively good computer, so I don't have that check mark right now. But that should be it just for AirSim and Unreal Engine. So let's hit play. So for you, if you've never done this before, you will have something called build, and you would build first and then press play. As you can see, this is our little drone, and you're going to see all these little texts over here. So if you, and this is actually because of this settings.json over here. And I'll go over these settings later when we need to actually use this. But usually this is blank, and once this is blank, you can actually just control the drone inside Unreal Engine while it's playing with the controller, and you can just fly around normally. But since we have this actually connected, we can't use our controller, at least not at this step. So let's stop this right now. You can also press escape to stop the simulation. So that's AirSim and Unreal Engine. So now we'll be using PX4. So I'm going to actually leave that running in the background also. So PX4 does not like to be natively run on Windows. It has trouble talking to its local ports for some reason. I don't know why. But we'll be using WSL, which is pretty much a really light Linux VM. run pretty much on your command line. So if you don't have it already, just do WSL -- install over here. It'll actually install WSL. Now, once you have WSL installed, you can do bash, and this will actually bring up our Linux machine. And this is actually run inside Windows, and this is my actual directory in my Windows directory right now. So what I did was I actually just navigated all the way back, created a new folder called Documents. Oh, I need to do CD Documents. And this is where I'm going to install PX4. Now, you can also run an Ubuntu VM like on VirtualBox or VMware, and the steps will be pretty much the same. But instead, this is really light as it runs in our command prompt, and I don't have to be tabbing back and forth between a virtual machine and this. So what we're going to do next is, also quick note, once you install WSL and you get some sort of error relating to like a hypervisor or something like that, in your Windows command prompt, actually I'll just open a new command prompt over here. You can actually run this command. This will automatically start your hypervisor, and there are other options that make WSL not work, something relating to virtualization. So you make sure you have virtualization enabled in your BIOS, and then you also have to completely restart your system so this can take effect. But we'll go back to that. So right now we're focused on installing PX4. Now PX4 installation is very, very similar to AirSim, where we're going to use git clone, and we'll be using the latest version of PX4 found on their page over here. Now I already have this built, but what you would do is just same as before, copy this. Let's go back to our WSL machine, and then we would just do this, and it will automatically install. Now, if you remember from AirSim, we had to do a build command, but build.cmd is for Windows. So for Ubuntu-based systems like this one, we would be using a .sh. So I'll show you how to do that. So let's navigate to my PX4 folder. So I'm in Documents. So like I said, this is Linux. So you can see I have PX4 Autopilot already installed. So let's navigate. I forgot to put CD again for a directory. And let's look what's inside. So we want to navigate to Tools. So let's go to CD Tools, inside of this, and we're going to go to Setup over here. So let's go to Setup. Now let's look inside one more time. So we'll be running this ubuntu.sh, and this is similar to build.cmd. This will build PX4, and it'll take a little bit. So now let's go. So after you've done that, PX4 is successfully built on WSL. So let's go back to that settings.json. Now what does this actually do? So this is located where you installed AirSim in your documents. And then we can go all the way down here, settings.sh, and it's a JSON, or settings.json. And this is blank, usually. Oh, what? This is not it. This is it. Settings.json. So these are the settings that whenever you start your Unreal project, so whenever you press play over here, it will actually get these settings and use them. So that's why you saw all those little things like localhost IP, port, TCP port, all that stuff. It comes from here. So there's some, I don't know what absolutely everything does here. Some of these things are just to make it happy, but I'll go through everything that I know at least. So sim mode multi-rotor, we're gonna need that. That's our vehicle. Separable clock, I don't know what that actually means. Oop, changed something, but it needs it to make it happy. Wind, so this AirSim, you can actually set your wind condition inside an AirSim simulation, and you can do it in X, Y, and Z directions, and this is all measured in meters per second. So now we have to include our PX4 vehicle. So we're going to do vehicle type, multi-rotor, and we'll actually be communicating from our Unreal project over here to PX4 via TCP. So we'll be using TCP instead of serial. So we'll set that to false. Don't know what lockstep does, so use TCP true. So this is QGroundControl host IP. You can actually just leave this blank. I just have it there just in case I wanted to change it. But you can leave that blank if you're running it fully. So like I said, TCP port 4560. This is default on PX4. So these are two different IPs over here, and you're probably wondering what are those and where do I get them? So if we do ifconfig, oh, wrong one, ipconfig over here, we're gonna see that on Windows, our WSL has this address here. So we'll actually putting this address that Windows has for WSL in localhost IP over here. As you see, 3132, 3132 over here. And then the second one is what WSL, like it's the actual machine, what it says. So let's go over here, ifconfig, real quick. See 3144, 3144, 215. These are the same. And this is this address will change every so often. So make sure you just double check every single time that you run this. If it doesn't work, make sure that this didn't change on you, because sometimes it did for me. Now these are us setting up our sensors. These are just default sensors and parameters. You actually don't need this. I was playing around with this, but this actually sets your latitude and longitude when you run QGroundControl. But you don't need this. So this is our settings.json, and this pretty much tells our Unreal project how to talk to PX4. Or also, this I forgot to explain this UDP port over here. So QGroundControl, the thing that will, for autonomous flight planning connects to PX4, will be connected via UDP, and the port is 14580, and that's the port that worked for me. Now obviously you can change these ports to whatever you like. If you're using a different program on one of these ports, you can change it, but just make sure you're consistent throughout your entire configuration process. Now PX4 should automatically be installed, but actually, so now that we have Unreal Engine knowing how to talk to PX4, we need to make sure PX4 knows how to talk to our Unreal Engine. So pretty much Windows to WSL and WSL to Windows. So how we're going to do that is we're going to set up a global variable, and nano's built in to WSL, so we'll use nano /dot-rc. Now let's scroll all the way down, and we're going to need to include this right here, this export PX4 sim host address. Now this one over here, this address is actually our local host. So this is what Windows has WSL as. So we need this so PX4 knows to talk to that address. So I didn't change anything, so I'm just gonna Control X. But for you guys, you would just add it all the way at the bottom, as far down as you can. Control X. And then let's navigate all the way back to our main folder in PX4. So right here. So to actually get PX4 started, we need to type in the following things. Make PX4 SITL, which stands for System in the Loop. So there are two ways you can start this. So SITL for obviously software in the loop, and then if you want to apply this to a real life drone, you would actually do HITL, hardware in the loop. So for this case, SITL, and then none iris. So this actually tells it not to use any of the simulators that was installed with PX4, and this what allows it to talk to our Unreal project. So So I have this started. So let's press play on this. See, our drone is over here. And if we press enter, you should see it connect. As you see, partner is this local machine, according to WSL. As you can see, we're using TCP port on 4560. So like I said, that was our default configuration, and the only thing that I specified here was this address over here, as we saw in that .bashrc file. So as you see, it says ready for takeoff. So when you see this, you know that you connected it right. And you can see over here, it says got GPS location. That means it's connected. So this is command line based. So what we can do from here is do commander takeoff. And as you can see, using takeoff, default takeoff altitude, as you can see, it's flying all by itself. And then if you want it for it to land, we can do commander land. Now we actually don't need QGroundControl to do autonomous flight paths. You can actually do it within PX4, because since this is command line, you can actually use scripts, like Python scripts, to run the autonomous flying. But that's not what we'll be doing today. We'll be using QGroundControl. So PX4 and AirSim and Unreal Engine are all currently working. So let's go and install QGroundControl. So, accidentally closed that. So to stop this, we can actually just press Control C, and I'm gonna exit out of that real quick. So QGroundControl, you can just Google QGroundControl install, and it'll bring you to this page. And all you have to do is download this, and it'll actually start, or the installation process is like any other app you ever installed in your life. There's no crazy process where you have to go to command line, run a build command. You just install. So I have QGroundControl already installed, and we'll go into configuration on QGroundControl. So this is QGroundControl. It uses Google Maps, any map app of your choice, but this won't be indicative of what's actually in your simulated environment. It just needs this to create flight paths, because this is actually supposed to be used for real-life drones. But we connected it to a simulated drone, and it'll still work. So the only thing that we would have to change here is going to Application Settings, Comms Link, and we're going to add a new link. Now, as you can see, I already added a link called WSL, well, WSL2, and I specified the port that we did specified earlier over here in our settings.json. So to actually do that, as you click that little add button, enter any name, WSL, and then change this connection type to UDP, and then we'll be using 14580. And then over here is you can put your server address. As you see, this is optional. But here, let me go to my actual one. As you can see, I included the address of the WSL machine. Not what the WSL machine is on Windows, but the actual machine of WSL. Over here, and you can click save, and then you can hit connect. Now there's a certain startup combination that you have to do for all of this to work that I found. It won't work if you open these at random in random orders. So what I like to do is to have WSL connected. Actually, let me show you how you can actually connect. So you can do it that way, or you can go over here, it says manually connect over in the top left. I can click on WSL2 and it'll be connected. Now you can see it's still disconnected, but that's because our Unreal project and PX4 are currently not running. So the order is QGroundControl, have this connected to its comms link. You want to start your Unreal project in Unreal Engine, and then you want to go to PX4 and do that same thing we did earlier, make PX4 SITL non-iris, start, and as you heard, it has a little text thing, and once you hear that, you'll know that you connected everything correctly. And you see it still says ready for takeoff, but over here it says ready to fly. Now, there's a bunch of stuff you can do with QGroundControl. One of those is being autonomous flight paths. So let's go to fly. So I already have a flight path already created, but let's say you didn't have one, or you want to delete one, right? So you go clear over here. And then, as you saw, there are different starter ones that you can do, pre-built paths. But if you just want to do your very own, you can just do, or you have to click takeoff first, and we can set this at any altitude we want. So it'll actually use those simulated sensors that we specified earlier to judge how high it is off the ground. So let's just say we call this 10 feet, right? And we can also change the angle at which it takes off at. Now we have to set waypoints, so each place that it wants to visit. Over here, so all you have to do is click waypoint and click on an area. You can see here, you can change altitude at various waypoints, and you can change the angle and how fast the motors are going. So one waypoint, and then all you have to do is click somewhere else to give it a different waypoint over here. So let's change this to 20, and let's have it hold for 5 seconds. And we won't play with this just yet. And then let's say that's all we wanted to do is to visit these locations. Excuse me. We would have to hit return. And by default, it just returns to launch. But you can actually set it to land to any specified area. So land over here, you can see land vehicle at specified location. Return to launch as what we'll be doing. So let's just click return to launch. And once you're done planning your flight path, you actually have to upload it like you would with a real life drone. So all you have to do now is click fly, and then you see the slider over here. All you have to do is hit that. I can hear QGroundControl telling me what's happening. And you can also see on the bottom right, over here, the altitude. Now it looks like it's not going anywhere, but it's because we have a really small environment. And as you can see over here, that's a little island that we were landed on. As you can see in real time, it's tracking the drone's location. And as you see, at this waypoint we specified 20 feet. It's going up 20 feet, and now it's returning. Now let's see if it'll land all by itself. And as you can see in PX4, it also has logs over here. Well, not logs, but it tells you what's happening. And successfully landed. As you can see, it says landing detected. And you can have special rules where when it lands, you can have it disarm, or you can just have it wait for another flight. Now, what's weird about PX4 is even though you can specify those things at the end of flight, you actually have to close PX4 and reopen it to do another flight path. But let's go over what else QGroundControl can offer for us. So let's say you were running a simulated environment of a full city, of a real city, and you wanted to get different logs, like how it was flying, what the roll angle, pitch angle, things like that. You can actually download all of your flight logs over here. And these are all of my flight logs that I've ever taken. So look at the time that you launched your flight. Actually upload it to PX4 website. So let me look for that real quick. PX4. I have it in my email, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. So I could upload this to PX4. It's called Flight Review. and it's just any of these logs. You just download to your local machine and upload it, and it will generate a little report of your flight log or of your flight path. So you can see, you get altitude estimates, roll angle, pitch angle, yaw, local position at X, local position at Y, at Z, the velocity, if there are any manual inputs. All these little things you can get from QGroundControl. And let's actually stop this simulation and let's see how this actually works with a environment. We'll just save. So make sure you save everything. So let's close everything. Let's also close this, Control C, X this out, and let's actually go to a more in-depth or a more real-life environment. So you probably saw earlier, I have an environment somewhere over here, Unreal projects. And the way that I'm going to start this is by the .sln, not clicking this, clicking this. And the settings.json will apply to every single AirSim project that you have that uses the AirSim plugin. So you don't actually have to change this if you have multiple projects. So as you can see, this is my other project. You can see it's pretty much the same as what we just did. As you can see over here, startup actions, these are here. So all we're gonna do is click play up here. It should start. Let's minimize that, minimize this. Now let's open WSL and get rid of this too. Bear with me. This is going to take a little bit more time since it's a bigger environment. Let's also open QGroundControl while we're at it. Let's get rid of this notebook. So as you can see, this is my environment that I used. So find PX4. So as you can see, this is much different than what we just did. But all I did was just download this from the Unreal Marketplace and pretty much follow the steps that we just went through. So let's do the same thing. So let's start let's play. Make sure WSL2 is connected. And as you can see, it works. So let's plan a very, very simple flight path. So let's do this. Let's clear, take off, and let's set this at 70 feet. Because QGroundControl actually doesn't include automatic collision avoidance, at least in mission mode, which is the automatic flight path. You'll only do it in something called position mode, where you're controlling it with a controller. So we're gonna set this at very, very high altitude. I'm gonna do one waypoint over here. Let's make this relatively short. Another waypoint over here. And then we'll have our return to land over here. And we'll upload that. So it says done, and all you have to do is slide over. And we can see the drone is starting up. As you can see, some of these trees are very, very tall, and sometimes we'll just straight up crash into them. So this is where having the flexibility of using your own Python scripts would come into play, where you can actually write your own flight scripts that will include collision avoidance. Some people do this with neural networks and machine learning, and PX4 actually connect with Jupyter Notebook, so you can do that much easier and integrate much easier. You can also download other people's other people's solution for collision avoidance. But this is just a very, very rough tutorial guide on how to actually just get started and start playing around with something like this. Documentation for something like this, at least all four of these programs, being AirSim, Unreal Engine, PX4, and QGroundControl, all working, pretty much doesn't exist. I found very, very helpful videos for installing Unreal Engine and AirSim, and I will include those in my links to those in my GitHub. And I've also found very useful videos for WSL, PX4, and QGroundControl working together, and I'll also include that later or in my GitHub. But running it like this completely on Windows, this was very, very hard to do, and I just wanted to get this video out so other people looking to do this would have a much, much better time than I did. But as you can see, our drone is landing in our Unreal environment, and you can see it also counts collisions and count that landing as a collision. But this is, you can fine tune this. This is just a very, really, really quick and easy way to create a flight path with a simulated drone. All right, thank you.